go ahead and get started here. To our off-campus viewers, I found out, unfortunately, that the webcam I'm using flips the image like a mirror, so it won't be like that in the version that I put up afterwards, so I apologize for that, but hopefully you'll still be able to follow along and get something out of this. So this is our iPad training session. Hey, come on in. And how many of you guys have an iPad or an iPhone or something or another? Okay, so most of you here. So if I hold this up, it's not something incredibly foreign that you've never seen before, hopefully. The first thing I wanted to go over is just the layout of the device and the buttons and all that kind of stuff. So if you turn on your device, that's the most important thing. If you hold it upright, this big fat circle button will be at the bottom, and then at the top right corner, you'll see this little black switch. If you press that, it'll toggle back and forth between sleep mode and go to this lock and unlock screen, and you can just slide your finger along here to unlock it. If you hold the power button for about 5 seconds, you'll get this prompt here to power it off. And then if you do power it off, you can power it back on by holding it for about 3 seconds, the same button. So that same button does all the power and sleep functions. So if your device is in sleep mode, it uses not a whole lot of power, but it still does use some. If you turn it all the way off, then it's not going to use any power at all for the most part. So if you have to go on a long trip and you aren't going to be able to charge for a while, you might turn it off rather than putting it in sleep. This big fat button right in the middle here is called the home button, and when you press that button, it'll snap you back to your home screen from pretty much anywhere. So if you just click on any random icon here on the main screen, then you press this home button, it will interrupt you and take you right back to this desktop looking screen here. So another thing you can do is if you tilt your iPad or iDevice, it'll change the orientation between landscape mode and portrait mode. You can flip it all the way around in 360 degrees. So however you need to flip it to get comfortable where you're sitting is good. I prefer usually to have it in the landscape mode like this. It's just easier for me to work with, but it's really up to you. Another thing you'll notice on the side here, there's this little black strip. That's your volume control, and when you press it up and down, you'll see this little volume dialog on your screen, and once this comes back up, and yeah, you can see that it's going up and down. So nothing too fancy, nothing to be too scared of there. And there's this other little tiny switch right above the volume controller that does special functions that you can assign, and we'll get to that later. But the main buttons that you'll be using for the most part, just this big home button and the little power control up top. So I want to talk a little bit about navigating around your device. This iPad right here doesn't have anything installed on it. It's basically clean, fresh out of the box, just like if you got yours yesterday. So this little set of icons here are the default ones. If you had multiple icons, or if you had more icons that you installed yourself, you could swipe your finger to scroll between pages. If you swipe to the left, there's this search page that you can get to that is always there. And if you have tons of apps that you installed, you can swipe to the right and get to other pages of apps. That we'll see that later when we install some apps. If we open up multiple apps, there's a quick little shortcut for switching between them. So let's open up our calendar app, and it'll just be a meaningless thing, and we don't have to worry about what that means right now. And then open up some other random app like Photo. It's kind of hard to do sometimes, but if you press your 4 fingers onto the screen and then you swipe it to the side, you can jump right back and forth between the apps that you have running, and it won't make you go back to your home screen. So go ahead and try that real quick. Just putting 4 fingers on the screen and going from side to side. And they can be handy if you have a lot of things open and you just want to go right back and forth real quick through them. And I'm going to go back to my home screen now. And if anyone has any questions, I'm going too fast, please stop me.
How do you open up two things again at one time?
Okay, so let's just press any of these icons on your desktop, like photo booth, say.
Okay.
And then press our big fat home button.
Okay.
And then just press any other icon, like camera.
Okay.
And then we put our fingers on the screen and swipe.
Okay, it's not. Mine's not doing it, yeah.
It should work on all of the Apple devices. If you have a really old one, it might not support that on it.
No, okay.
But it should work. And if you're having trouble with it, I can help you with it a bit. Next thing I wanted to go over is grouping icons together and moving them. So this is just a big clutter of stuff here on your home screen, and it can be overwhelming, and you might not even want to look at most of this stuff a lot of the time. So if we press our finger on one of these tiles and hold it for a second, it'll go into what I call wiggle mode. As you can see up here, everything's kind of dancing around. And then when the icons are in wiggle mode, you can touch your finger on one of these tiles and drag it around to reorganize things.
Oh,
you can also put something down here in this bottom toolbar, and the difference between the bottom toolbar and everything else is that if you have multiple pages of stuff on your home screen, you'll always see the bottom toolbar. So it's good to put really important things down in the bottom toolbar that you'll be using all the time. I usually put the settings tile down there because that's something I use quite a bit. You can also group apps together into folders. So say we want to put the App Store and iTunes both into one little group because we think they're kind of similar. While we're in our wiggle mode, we can touch the App Store and we can drag it on top of the iTunes icon, and it'll automatically create a little folder. And it's called a lifestyle by default. Let's rename it something else. So if we click the little X, keyboard will pop up, and we'll just name it iTunes. Is everyone following along? Okay, so if we just click out here, we'll go back to our home screen. If you want to exit wiggle mode, you just press the home button. So when you're done moving things around, that's all you have to do. So it can be really helpful once you start getting tons and tons of apps installed, if you just put them in folders and group them together instead of having to scroll through 5 or 6 pages of things, and find your web browser. Also wanted to point out, if you have certain apps installed like Facebook or the Mail app, if you touch the top of the screen and you drag down, there's this tiny hidden notifications bar. And if you get a new message on Facebook, or certain other apps use it as well, it will give you a little pop-up, and this guy will come down and say, so-and-so has sent you a message. So if you ever need to check what's up there, you can just drag your finger up and down this top part here. So that's a kind of a neat little feature. And this isn't especially helpful, but if you double tap your home button, it will bring up this list of your most used apps, and you can kind of scroll through it from side to side. So I guess if you have tons and tons of apps installed, you can go through them real fast just by double tapping your home button. So that's kind of a neat feature. And if you swipe to the side like I showed you before, we get to the search screen that will search through all the apps and also our contacts. So this is a good opportunity to practice using the keyboard, I think. So go ahead and swipe to the left, and let's all go to the search screen. And it brings up this nice keyboard. I find that it's way easier to type on my device if I put it in the landscape mode instead of the portrait mode. When the keyboard is wider, the buttons are just a lot easier to press. So let's try typing in mail, and see our mail app pulls up right there. Not especially helpful right now because we don't really have a lot of apps, and we could have just clicked it right here, but it could be helpful later in the future. So this keyboard is kind of tricky to use at first, and the buttons that appear on the keyboard will be different depending on what situation you're in. Like when you're typing a URL into your web browser, you'll see this automatic .com button down here, and that's not here when we're on the search screen because I guess Apple thought we didn't need to see .com in most of our contexts when we're typing. If you press this 1, 2, 3 button, it will bring up the numbers, and then if you press this little symbols button, it will let us put in interesting little symbols like %, and pound, and all of that. So, and then this is our shift button if we want to use capital letters. We just press this little arrow up, and we can type capital letters there. So, typing is kind of a chore on an iPad or any device like this. So that's kind of one of the reasons why when people use these, they mainly are using it to like view videos and view things on the internet. You're not probably going to sit down and write the Great American Novel on your iPad because it's going to be really tedious to type all that in. So any questions over this basic user interface type stuff we've gone over so far? I know this is probably not incredibly interesting at this point, but we'll get to some good stuff now. Let's go into our settings. So if you see this big gear icon, we're going to click that, and that has a lot of good stuff about setting up our device. So one of the things that you're going to be using most often in your settings screen is Wi-Fi. So if you click this little Wi-Fi bar up here, it will let us choose a Wi-Fi network. And for right now, let's just choose the SBU Wi-Fi, and this will let us connect to SBU's wireless internet network. And if you're at home, you won't see this next screen, but in SBU, this menu should pop up, and you can log in using your My SBU username and password, and then we can get on the internet. So go ahead and try to connect to the Wi-Fi and log in so you can follow along.
This is, wow.
I wonder if that's just on an iPad.
Well, I did it a while ago, but it's not doing it now. Okay, so where did I go?
Okay, so I got my success message, hooray. So that means I am now connected to the internet. It's a good thing. And is anyone still trying to connect? Okay. Are you getting any sort of error messages or anything like that?
Well, I didn't even get the login.
Okay.
There it is, okay.
It did, so you clicked the SBU Wi-Fi, but it didn't prompt you to log in?
Where'd it go?
Okay, it'll prompt you at a different screen in a little bit again, so that's okay for now. So the next thing we're going to do at our settings screen.
I've got to get it right. How you do that?
Click on those spaces we wanted.
Sorry, is everyone ready to move on to the next step? Okay. The next thing we're going to do with our settings screen is modify some of the keyboard settings. If we go back to our main screen and we go to the search, you can't really hear. Let me turn up my volume as high as it'll go. There's this annoying clickety-clack noise whenever you hit keys, and it drives me crazy. So we can turn that off. I'm going to go into my settings, and we're going to go into the general part of the sidebar. If we scroll down a little bit, there's this keyboard section. So general, scroll down, keyboard, and I'm going to, let's see. Okay, the clickety-clack, that's in the next part actually. Let's go to sounds in our sidebar. And at the bottom there's this keyboard clicks switch right here. And we're going to flip that to off. And if you like it on, you can turn it on. But I hate it, so I'm going to turn mine off. You can also change your, your maximum and minimum volume with this little slider here in the sound menu. Alright, that's all we do about our system. So let's go back to the general part now. There's some keyboard settings that we probably want to fix. So let's go to general and scroll down to keyboard. And if you all heard horror stories about people sending auto-corrected text messages and stuff like that on their device, and they say like, want to go to the mall, and it says like, want to steal my dog or something like that. We can turn that off. So there's this little switch here for auto correction, and you pretty much always want to turn that one off because it's pretty horrible. And the other ones, I guess, they're probably okay for the most part. I'm not going to go through any of them right now. There's an automatic spell checker that's pretty helpful. You should probably leave on. auto capitalization is pretty helpful, so we'll leave those alone. So the next settings, if we go into this brightness and wallpaper part on the sidebar, we can sort of control how bright our screen is. I don't know if it'll show up on this big screen or not, but if you look at mine, you can kind of tell that it gets real dark and real bright. And this is helpful for if you are, say, in bed in the dark reading, and I find if you have the light turn up really high, it just kills your eyes. So I think it's nice sometimes to sort of put it dimmer when there's not a lot of background light. You can kind of just adjust that to your taste. And the next thing on here that's pretty, I guess it's kind of neat, is you can change the background wallpaper on your device. If you take a photo and upload it to your iPad, you can put a custom photo on your desktop, but it comes with all these preloaded ones. So I'm going to change my desktop to this nice beach up here, and I'm going to say set home screen. And when I go back to my home screen now, I have this beach background. So nothing too impressive, but it can be nice to customize your device. So do I need to stop and let everyone catch up, or is anybody lost? Okay. There are some privacy controls that are probably something you'll want to use. So if we go to this privacy section on the sidebar, that's not what I thought it was. Okay, we're actually going to go to the general section, and we're going to use this passcode lock function that's right in the middle. And this lets us sort of enter a little PIN number password that we can use to keep people out of our device when we have it locked. So I'm going to click this big turn passcode on button at the top, and I'm going to enter 1234 for my passcode. And now if I press this power button at the top and I lock my device, the next time I try to start it up and I unlock it, it'll prompt me to enter my passcode. So nobody can get in if they don't know what it is. So that's something that everyone probably should use. I recommend it very strongly. The next thing that I wanted to bring up is, it's also in the General tab. There's a section that says Use Side Switch To. I guess it's right here. And you can set it to either mute or lock rotation. And what that's referring to is this tiny little switch here above the volume button. And you can either have it muted, which is self-explanatory, no sound comes out of your device, or you can use lock rotation, which I find to be pretty helpful. If you use lock rotation, if you press this little switch here and you rotate your iPad, then it's not going to change orientation. That can be helpful at certain times, if you're moving around a lot, you don't want your screen to get all wiggly on you. So I think that's a pretty helpful little feature there. Sometimes if you just totally ruin your device and your kids are playing with it and they put a whole bunch of junk on there and you don't even know what it is, you can just go into the general section in settings, scroll down to the very bottom, go to this nice reset button, and you can just do erase all content in settings, and it will bring your iPad back to the state it was in basically when you bought it. So it'll be clean and it won't have any junk on it. And with the iPads that we check out here at the library, we wipe them after every use. So it's a pretty helpful feature, and you should know that it's there. When you are going to be using your iPhone or iPad, you're going to have to set up what's called an Apple ID, so you can download apps. And an Apple ID is just your little Apple username that they make you use to sign in and download apps and to use pretty much all of Apple's services. So to create your Apple ID, we're going to scroll down in our sidebar to the iTunes and App Stores button. And I'm going to walk you through creating an Apple ID, so we're going to click that Create a New Apple ID button. And let's see if it'll open. Okay. problem getting to this part. Because if your internet connection for some reason didn't get set up right, you might not see this.
Mine's just saying it cannot connect.
Okay.
Invalid argument.
Your Wi-Fi probably isn't set up.
Okay.
So you might go back and try logging into that again. So we're
Oh,
gonna
there it is. Okay.
press next here, and we're going to send by email. Well, no, we don't need to do that. We just need to go to the bottom and agree to these terms and conditions. And we enter our email address here, and I create sort of a fake email address because I already have one with my SBU email address. And then go ahead and create a password for yourself. And I guess we got to do these secret questions. Those are always fun. I just enter a bunch of garbage. I don't plan to use this account, but you should probably take time and set yours up. Okay, so next, we need a number and our password. I didn't like my cheat answers. Apparently, Apple wants to make sure you have a decent password.
There you go.
And a
Special
symbol?
character as well.
Okay. Okay. Maybe now it'll like it. All right. And it's going to ask you if you want to enter billing information. You can actually skip this part. I know you can. I've done it before.
If you already have an iTunes account, can you just
Yeah, if
log
you already
in?
have an iTunes account, you can just use that. If you don't want to enter credit card information, I think you have to actually create your Apple ID through their website on a computer. If you want to go ahead and enter your credit card information, you can. This is pretty much the last step, so I'm just going to skip this part for right now because I don't have my credit card with me. So I'm just going to cancel this. I'm going to use my existing Apple ID for the rest of this. So once we've created our Apple ID, we can go back to our iTunes and App Store tab, and we can just enter it in the top here. I'll use my real one. Okay, so I am signed in now to the App Store. So now that I am signed in now, I can start downloading apps. And apps are sort of a term that's thrown around a lot when you're using iPhones and iPads and things like that. Apps are just programs. They're like any piece of software that you have on your computer. The difference is that when you're using an iPad or an iPhone, there's kind of a paradigm shift, and instead of working with files, like on your PC in your office, you'll have all of your Word files, and you'll have all your PowerPoint files and things like that. in this, you don't have all those files. You just do everything through the apps, and the apps manage all the files, and you never see files. So it's sort of a different paradigm that you have to get used to. So let's go ahead and go to our app store, and we'll download a couple sample apps, and we'll sort of use the interface and see what it looks like. You'll want to get to know the app store because without putting apps on your device, it's not very interesting. So this is the main screen of the App Store, and it's going to try to get us to download a bunch of stuff. It's going to have us download all these free apps, and I'll tell it yes, just because I don't care too much and they're decent apps. And we're going to start searching now for some apps. So one of the first ones we'll download, if you click in the search bar at the top, we'll search for the Facebook app. And if you want to read details about the app, you just click on this big tile and you can sort of scroll through details and read what people are saying, and you can read how people are reviewing it. They give this 1 to 5 star rating and all that. If you just want to install it, you can click the button where it says free. If it's not free, obviously it will say a price instead of free. So you just click twice there to install, and now it's installing. So let's just go on and get some more apps while we're at this little page. We'll get the obligatory Angry Birds game, just because we can. So we'll search for Angry Birds. And we'll just install it, so we'll just click this big free button here. You'll also notice that at the top you see there's an iPad apps and iPhone apps menu. If you scroll back and forth between these, you'll see certain apps that are designed for the smaller screen of the iPhone and the iPod Touch, and if you go back to the iPad apps, these apps are all designed to work on the bigger screen of the iPad. If you are using an iPad, you can download the iPhone apps, but I'm pretty sure you cannot download iPad apps from an iPhone because it doesn't know how to condense them to a smaller screen. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. Let's see, we'll get the Kindle eBooks app. And I'll also install TeamViewer, which is an interesting app that we will use later on that lets you connect remotely to your computer from your iPad. And we'll also download Prezi. And all these apps that we're downloading, for the most part, I'll walk you through using a little bit later at the end of our session. Except Angry Birds. And we'll get SkyDrive next. All these apps here are free. There are tons and tons of apps that you can pay money for, and a lot of them probably do a better job than some of the free ones, but these are all pretty good, and I've used them quite a bit. So we'll use them for now. There's one called Dragon Dictation. And we will go ahead and we'll get one more called Scan. It's your QR code scan. Okay, so I got all my apps here that I wanted, and I'm going to press my home button and go back to my home screen. Now you can see that it shows two little dots down here because I have two home pages full of icons, and I can swipe back and forth between them to navigate. And These apps here that say waiting are still waiting to install. It can only download one app at a time, but eventually they're all going to be installed. If you want to get rid of one of the apps you installed, just touch the icon and wait for it to go into whittle mode, and then there's this little X at the top, and we'll delete our Angry Birds. And this little prompt comes up, and now they're going to be even more angry because they got deleted.